I just hit record. You ready?
Nigga, I watched the episode of Proud Family last night, and Penny was pretending to cough on everything because she thought that her daddy was cheating on her mama, and she confronted the lady, and she was like, "No, we don't need your services." She was like, "We got chicken pox." That's right, I got chicken pox. My whole family do too. And she was like, and she was like, "Stop! Get away from me!" I was like, first of all, chicken pox does not make you cough.
I think she was trying to spread her germs, right?
Yeah, she was trying to be funny. She was just like, back up, get away from my daddy.
That be one of the things you internalize, don't even realize it. Somebody be like, "Get away from me!" Yeah. All right. Well, I guess at the 1 minute mark, we'll get into the serious stuff. All right. So what's good, y'all? It's your favorite light skinned couple. What I'm about to discuss with LaQuise right now, what I found. So, LaQuise, have you heard? There was basically, I've heard a couple times that, a lot of people want to reference Dr. King when they're talking about, peaceful protests and how people should do it and, how you stand up. But I also heard that towards the end of his life, I've heard some people say that, he did a complete 180. And I've also heard that, he just had some stuff to add to that. Have you ever heard anybody make mention to that, or have you ever heard anything of that sort?
Yeah. So, to my knowledge, he was starting to become more radical or whatever. Just like there's that picture of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King Jr. Nobody knows what they talked about. Mm-hmm. And I don't really remember exactly when that photo was taken, but and I'm not gonna act like I know every speech that Dr. King ever made or whatever, but from what I've heard, he was starting to get a little bit lean, not necessarily dealing with 180, but lean a little bit more towards we got to do more because what's going on right now ain't working. Mm-hmm. And because just look at history. What did being peaceful even do? Those people, so many people got killed, so many people were beat to death. They couldn't even defend themselves. Sitting at a lunch counter and people were spat on, got milkshakes poured in their face, they got food thrown at them, they got dragged out into the street. Mm-hmm. And that was them being peaceful. That was literally them just sitting somewhere. So my thing is being peaceful, and I think that Dr. King started to see that being peaceful is not really changing anything either. We tried that approach, so maybe we need to do something different. Now I don't know what exactly he said or what he was getting at, because like I said, I hadn't listened to his later speeches, but that's the knowledge that I have.
I had heard it, but I hadn't gone and researched it. I hadn't heard anything specific, but I did just hear that, Dr. King wasn't always the Dr. King that they want to shove in our face. And I thought about it for two reasons. A lot of people are adverse to Christianity because they feel like it was given to the slaves to, like, even if you wanted to be free, they felt like the ones that could read, were the closest to freedom. So they gave them a book that would basically teach them to just chill out, to just wait for somebody else to do it. Well, not so much somebody else to do it, but wait for things to change on their own, as opposed to putting their hands to the grindstone and making something happen. I think put nose to the grindstone. Anyway, I feel like the same way a lot of people feel like the Bible was given to the slaves to make them docile, people feel like, they keep pushing that version of Dr. King in our face so that when stuff goes wrong, we say, "Hey, stop it," and we wait for them to do it on their own. But if that would work, would they ever have done it in the first place? Because what we're recognizing is that people don't see it as a human rights issue. They don't see it as something being done to a human. They see it as something being done to a criminal, but they just don't say it out loud. So it's not that they see these things are wrong. They see them as justified. And the other side of it was maybe it was necessary that, he lived and he acted the way he did in this first half, or however long it was, so that when things did hit that hard 180 and they say, well, that's not how to do it, we tried it this other way, maybe there are some other ways that we can try, but until we see that this ain't getting undone, how long were peaceful protests happening with no real, they had an effect, but with no real progress? So, it makes sense that if you allow people to protest peacefully, then we feel just as justified to violently protest as long as we did the peaceful ones.
What's crazy is black people are told to peacefully protest, but look at all the stuff that changed within white American history. What did they do that was so peaceful? Let's think about the Revolutionary War. They were fighting for their rights, no taxation without representation and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And what did they do? Boston Tea Party.
Yep.
They destroyed, and that's even an argument towards this people talking about, oh, looting is not the way to do it. The way people look.
You can't tell me nobody took tea home.
You can't tell me that hitting somebody in the pockets doesn't get them thinking. You know what I'm saying? So, like,
I ain't gonna lie, I gotta look up the timeline just to see what led to what, but I'm like, more than likely the Boston Tea Party happened before the Revolutionary War.
That was one of the catalysts for it.
So I'm like,
that's what it was. That was them protesting being under the rule of Great Britain when they were like, we ain't even over here with y'all. So why we got to do it? And they're like, we're not even. What's crazy is America kind of does that to places like Guam and Puerto Rico and mm-hmm. American Samoa. They govern those places, but those places don't have a say in what happens to the United States.
Our president doesn't act like he knows on a regular basis that Puerto Rico is a part of the United States. As of late, I haven't read anything about anybody in Puerto Rico receiving any kind of stimulus, any kind of unemployment, or any kind of relief that has been critical to my heart rate being as normal as it has been since all this kicked off.
First of all, Puerto Rico is still recovering from, what was it, a hurricane a couple years ago?
Yep.
They haven't even gotten full relief from that.
I'm not going to throw out statistics, but yeah, I've heard that large parts of them are still without power. Like, imagine if any area in the United States went without power for a year,
Flint still doesn't have clean water.
Flint still don't have clean water, Lord. But anyway, what I'm getting at was, so I finally decided, because after just seeing somebody share, Dr. King, like, just showing peaceful protests and never had to riot over and over again, I'm like, all right, let me see what really went into all this. And so what I found was somebody writing about the dissertation, and then I found the dissertation itself, or rather, I found a link to it. I can't read the whole thing. The way I can read the whole thing is if I pay $7, or I can pay $42 and download it. But if I download it, I'm gonna share it. Think about it.
My issue is I'm tired of people telling us how we can evoke change when they're the ones who need to change. Like, well, maybe if you did this, it's like somebody being super condescending, like, oh, you didn't ask nicely. Even though that's like me stealing your tablet.
And then saying, give me my motherfucking tablet back.
Right. And then I'm like, no, you need to ask me nicely.
And then me getting mad saying, if you don't give me my motherfucking tablet, then people walking up and going, hey,
why are you doing that? I'm like, he's just trying to steal this tablet from me. But it's yours. And I've wronged you. Mm-hmm. But yet you have to pacify me to get your own stuff back. That doesn't make sense. But that's also the principles that America was built on.
And it's funny because you have all these people protesting, changes in America because their way of life is being impeded on. But I'm like, do you realize that you're basically asking people to just throw away their pride as, not even as black people, but as humans, to beg somebody to not, you have to basically beg people to say, hey, maybe it shouldn't be normal for people to die at the hands of the very law enforcement officers that's supposed to be protecting their rights. But I won't go into everything, but this is the part that, I knew I had this quote, but it kind of goes into it. I had this part, this is a quote from Dr. King in that dissertation, where he says, urban riots must now be recognized as durable social phenomena. They may be deplored, but they are there and should be understood. Urban riots are a special form of violence. They are not insurrections. And I had to look up insurrections to make sure I had a clear understanding of that was. An insurrection is a violent attempt to overthrow, let me see. It's an uprising against a larger force that's in power. An insurrection can lead to revolution, but it's just as likely to be put down. Can also be a rebellion, a revolt, things like that. But Dr. King writes that they're not insurrections. The rioters are not seeking to seize territory or attain control of institutions. No one is rioting to say, hey, we need to take control of the police. They are mainly intended to shock the Caucasian community. They are a distorted form of social protest. The looting, which is their principal feature, serves many functions. And again, this dissertation was given at the, let me read real quick, at the American Psychology Association's annual convention in Washington, D.C. on September 1st, 1967. He was killed August 28th, 1960. Oh, no, I'm sorry. He was killed April 4th, 1968. So that was what? About 9 months later? 10 months later? April. 9 months later. Mm-hmm. So everybody keeps talking about his I Have a Dream speech, which he gave in 63.
Right.
5 years later, this is his position. I'm sorry, 4 years later, his position is not so much different, but given more context, he is no longer saying, y'all put your rocks down, put your guns down, we gonna do this a non-violent way. He may still be about doing it the non-violent way, but he's not putting down riots. He basically would not condone people using his name the way they are, because he is here saying that riots are a natural occurrence of the oppressed.
Here's where people have it twisted on folks who are like who like to speak on behalf of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. like they knew him personally, which, there are some people who do know the family of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. personally. Mm-hmm. My parents knew his daughter. Mm-hmm. She went to our church when we lived in Atlanta. So, not saying that they had conversations about this, but his kid's still around. This wasn't that long ago. So it's like, why are you misquoting him? And you always bring up Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., one, like you knew him personally, but then also, that was the only civil rights leader that we had. You don't want to acknowledge Stokely Carmichael. You don't want to acknowledge Marcus Garvey. You don't want to acknowledge Malcolm X.
And they damn sure don't want to acknowledge that the reason that Martin Luther King had the notoriety he had is because he had white allies to put him in the papers and in the books. They decided to, when Black History Month roll around, talk about Martin Luther King and mention Malcolm X. So it's not like, we decided he got it done. He's our guy. Y'all did. They did. Yeah. So again, we weren't printing the books. We had no power over what was taught in a lot of our classrooms. So the names that became household names were decided not by us. We agreed with it, but again, a lot of us knew nothing else. I remember when I was in middle school. Shouts out to Mr. Bradford. We had this step team, and Black History Month rolled around, and the specific goal of this section we did was, we were all black men, and we would step up and we would state our name with authority, and then we would speak on our historical contribution, and then we would end with, but you wouldn't know about me if you didn't read about me. So it was like Garrett A. Morgan, Benjamin Banneker, the open heart surgery. I'm trying to say Pierce.
Oh my gosh! If you hadn't asked me, I would have been able to tell you.
But the first open heart surgery. Matter of fact, and he died of heart complications because they wouldn't use the technique that he pioneered on him. So, like, and fact check me on that, because I would hate to tell you something wrong. But I'm going to make sure that I'm up on mine. But yes, like, so shouts out to Mr. Bradford, shouts out to Forest Hills. I grew up with black teachers, so that wasn't nothing new to me. And they made sure that, we got as much other stories as we could. You can't get the full story trying. So when people keep saying, oh, Dr. King wouldn't have stood for this, people were on Twitter telling his son, after that first line I read about, what was it? Urban riots. No, that's not it. Well, basically, saying that riots are the language of the oppressed. And there were people, of course they were them, commenting to him, telling him what his dad would have meant, what his dad wouldn't have stood for. I'm like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, case in point, how you gonna tell us about us?
I'm like, I think you shared this, but it was like, you don't get to tell the oppressed how they should respond to their own oppression, or something like that.
Yeah, talking about Huey.
Yeah, that little.
Yeah, I have no patience for white people trying to tell me how to be outraged at oppression from the comfort of their own privilege.
Yes. So that is exactly what's happening right now, and that's what has continued to happen. And I feel like the death of George Floyd is definitely going to be a catalyst for some change, because it has resonated far beyond the state lines of Minnesota, far beyond the United States. I mean, there are protests in the UK, there are protests I just saw something, there was protests in Tokyo, and to me that holds a lot of weight, because after white folks, a lot of Asian people have been known to discriminate against black people. I'm sure it goes across the board, but still, either way, something that happened in Minneapolis and you got people marching in Tokyo about it, that is the kind of solidarity that we need. And I'm just like, if this many people are outraged, and I was talking to my therapist about this morning, because I had to process my emotions dealing with this, but sometimes, maybe the majority isn't always right, and historically they haven't been. The majority has been, white people, and they think that because they're the majority that they have the power, and it's been like that. But it's like, if this many people are outraged about this, maybe you're wrong.
I mean, historically, the mob follows that one loud idiot. And very few of them decide to, check their sources. Like, a lot of us have only learned to fact check and, weigh our words after we've been caught or seen somebody, put their foot so deep in their mouth that, it's not a triple X rated video. But, yeah, I just think it's very emblematic that a lot of people feel like, black people are speaking up because they are the only victims of these crimes. It's not that, but I just think it's really powerful that if this is happening to other races, to other people, if black people are the ones to make the stand, so that other people make just as loud of a stand, so that the next time a Hispanic woman is mistreated at the hands of a government official, cities outside of just a community, stop and burn. When an Asian man is attacked. You know, cities burn. You know, when people get mad at people dying in senseless acts, cities burn. I think that'll be, you know, a great time. Not a great time, but you know, that'll be a great sign for change. But one thing I didn't want to forget to get to, because this is what really let me know I needed to say something. So right after he was saying that looting has several functions, he added, "Let us say boldly that if the violations of the law by Caucasian men in the slums over the years were calculated and compared to the law breaking of a few days of riots, the hardened criminal would be the Caucasian man. These are often difficult things to say, but I have come to see more and more that it is necessary to utter the truth in order to deal with the great problems that we face in our society." So I know a lot of people struggle with, you know, having these conversations because they don't have all the facts, or they don't necessarily want to see that line between them and their Facebook friends, or, you know, their followers or their coworkers. But addressing that truth, again, you can't let the loudest person in the room be wrong and you never say anything. If you never allow the truth to be present, you can never not allow the truth to be present. Especially when you know the truth. Especially when you're seeking the truth. Having that conversation creates a dialogue where, at the very least, foundations are shook and only the real remains.
Right.
So, you know, if you don't have all the facts, find them. You know, go look for them. I saw a post, one of my bandmates basically said, you know, everybody wants to say all this, you know, by any means. Everybody wants to say the good stuff, but they resort to the most basic response, which is a lot of times violence. But there's more we can do to that. You know, like in our communities, yes, we can, you know, create systems where we are independent of the system that we want to boycott or whatever. Because right now, if he said something that triggered me, he was like, "If you don't teach your kids to hunt, you ain't shit." And I was like, that was a direct quote. So I was like, hold on now. But then as I read further, I thought about it. It made sense. Because I'm like, there are ways for you to go out there and get it, but it is easier and it is common to just go to a store. But stores just don't pop up out of nowhere. Yeah. And we didn't build them. And until we have a way to take care of ourselves so that we can boycott, we feel stuck. And we feel like the only thing we can do is just tear it down. So I just feel like a dialogue is created. I've read a quote that's from Will Smith that was saying racism isn't getting worse, it's just getting filmed.
Yeah.
And so the connectivity of the world is just getting to a point where it's like somebody over here screams for help, but their neighbor was too far away, so nothing really happened from it. And somebody was able to go door to door and then act like it was just all one event because nobody ever really created that communication. But now that we're getting closer, now that we're more connected, now that we have phones, where I can be like, hey, somebody over here is doing something to me, and they're able to alert other people. I think it really just, I think it creates a more rapid response, and I think we are going to get closer to that boiling point, just because it is going to feel so fresh in everybody's mind, as opposed to, you know, you thinking that, oh, this stuff doesn't happen anymore. We're seeing that it's happening all the time. All you have to do is look. So you basically have to face that you're putting your head in the sand, or you're gonna have to accept what's going on.
So here's my thing also. I love how the people love to bring up Martin Luther King Jr. and be like, well, you should do it this way. When people don't want to hear it, they don't want to hear it. And think about it. Martin Luther King Jr. got his ass beat. He was thrown in jail. And he did it peacefully. He sat somewhere. He walked up and down streets. And just because that nigga had the audacity to think that he could be equal with white people, they beat him. They threw him in jail. So, essentially, I mean, it's almost just like, okay, just being black is the problem that they have with us. And they want to quote him, but one of his quotes that he said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." And I pulled up the rest of the quote because I didn't know what else he said after that. And this actually came from his letter from Birmingham jail. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. So, and that's what I feel like the problem is that people are thinking that it's us against cops. No. We're not against cops.
Right.
We're against police brutality and lethality.
Those thugs.
You know, we're against the way that black people are perceived, and it has been shown that black people are perceived in a violent and dangerous way, even though they haven't done anything to show that. We get grouped all together, like, well, we don't know. We just see a big black guy, and he could be a threat to me. Well, at this point, it's kind of the same way with us in police. We don't know which ones are the good ones and which ones aren't. But how about we look at people as people? And yes, in the profession of public safety, you never know what you're walking into. But at the same time, I'm sorry, that's what you signed up for.
Right.
And if your sacrifice leads to protect the greater community and serve the greater community, then thank you for your service. But as civilians, I didn't sign. I didn't take an oath to just try to walk down the street with skills in my hand. I didn't do that to play with a toy gun inside of Walmart. I didn't sign no oath to sit in my house and eat ice cream in my drawers. I just existed, and you took that as a threat.
You know the sad part is, Lord. The sad part is these days, basically we do, because I'm so sure that any well-intentioned black household has had that conversation where you basically have to take that oath, where your parents beg you to not react irrationally or get upset if you're pulled over by the cops. Like I remember every single time I go and see my dad's mother, like the last few moments of her conversation, she'd be like, I pray for you and I pray for your cousin, because y'all men out here, Rashad is tall, and just if they pull you over, it's just yes sir, no sir, yes ma'am, no ma'am. I mean, she is begging me to de-escalate as much as I possibly can. And anybody who knows me knows that's not going to be the issue. So if it happens to me, I don't have a problem with the looting. But make sure it don't happen to nobody else. Have a plan. We got to have a plan. You know what I'm saying? Build I don't know. But have a plan. You know what I'm saying? Because the outrage will be there. Anytime somebody dies that didn't deserve it, the outrage will be there. And getting mad at people for being upset that someone within their community, within their family is gone, and it didn't need to be that way, especially because of no fault of their own. And when you come for justice, they send you away saying, we don't see a problem with it. And when you keep hearing that, I mean, especially when you haven't even had a chance to really get over grieving the last time it happened. Like, that's the thing. Like, people keep trying to act like it's an isolated event. A lot of people who are devastated by this were still devastated by the last 100 times it happened. So it's like, once you look at it, if you look at it at an isolated event, it's disgusting. But when you look at it, as what it is it's exhausting. I mean, a lot of people have been driven speechless. A lot of minds that I like to debate, and I like to hear how wrong they think I am, and vice versa, because a lot of we sharpen each other. But I've seen a lot of them speechless at a lot of what's going on, because you feel like you have to deal with each instance for months at a time, basically having to fight for the right to be outraged, and then you're too tired to be even outraged, And like I said, we need a plan. But by that point, you're just so tired of thinking about it. You're just like, let me just take a break, and then you feel like you get hit again. So,
I think the most important thing about right now, and I think the biggest progression that we're seeing in this movement, is that I think we are gaining more and more allies, and that is what we need for it to affect change.
mm-hmm.
And I've had a lot of people who, through all of these other police brutality incidents, have either said nothing, maybe they didn't know about it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not in their circle or whatever, it doesn't apply to them, so they don't have any access to it. But now they're like, I did, just like I had a church member tell me, that she just didn't know how bad it was. And I'm not mad at anybody for that.
But I also understand those who get so aghast when somebody comes at them like, I didn't know. Like, while I am of the breed to be like, this has been going on. I'm glad you willing to step up and find out what it is you don't know. Because it takes a wise person to try to find out what they don't know about what they don't know. But there are going to be people who are like, how could you not?
Yes.
How could you?
People who
Well,
say
like
that.
that's when it's like that's when I said you have to recognize if you're willingly turning a blind eye to
but
it.
this is the thing. I won't say that completely either, and I don't think. Now, I'm not condoning the behavior of seeing something happen and not saying anything, but it's almost the bystander effect.
Yeah.
So the bystander effect in psychology is that if someone sees perhaps like an accident, it could be 20 people standing around watching it happen, and the reason why nothing is done to help that person is because everybody
sees nobody else doing it.
No. It's everybody thinks somebody else is going to step up and do it, so they don't. They're waiting. They're like, well, somebody else is going to handle it, so I don't have to do anything. And then that person who was affected by the trauma is suffering because of it, because everybody else is waiting around for the next person to do it. Oh, well, I think somebody else is going to do it, so I shouldn't do anything.
That's how Hillary lost.
But then
like,
also,
I don't have to worry about it.
What I've been reading a lot of people saying, Kim Kardashian made a statement about it, but she's been more heavily into civil rights, and she's in law school and all that other stuff. And maybe, I know she's a known culture vulture and stuff, but maybe she has had a change of heart. Maybe it took her having black children to realize. But I've seen a lot of white people say they didn't believe it, that it was their fight. It wasn't their place to be involved. Or they were too afraid because they're like, it's just like somebody else, like me telling somebody off and somebody else coming from the back saying, yeah, this ain't got nothing to do with you.
Right.
That's what they're afraid of being.
Right.
That person jumping in and it don't have nothing to do with them.
Even if you are right, what I'm saying, even if you're agreeing with the person who you feel like is right and objectively they are correct in whatever, action they take. But yeah, but you feel like you might overstep your boundaries.
And that's the problem. That's why we were trying to let people know, like, no, this is an issue that happens to black people, but this is not a black issue.
Right.
This is a human rights issue, because the group of people who are not being seen as human happens to be black people.
This is like, somebody just walking into a room and slapping somebody. And they might be doing it to other people, but that's like one motherfucker saying, you're not going to hit me ever again. You raise your hand at me, we're going to have a problem. And then everybody get mad because they trying to just, this one person is being silenced. Even though, again, like a lot of people bring up that, black people aren't the only victims. The graphics do show that they are disproportionately targeted, and I was reading an article earlier saying that because of how Hispanics and African American people populate dense urban areas, places that are more heavily policed than other areas, they are more susceptible to, they are more susceptible to policing, arrests, and basically it's just a domino effect. If the police are more active in your area, if there are more of you, I think per capita is the word I'm looking for, but basically if there are more cops in your area, chances are more people in this area are going to be arrested, and if more of these people tend to be of this nationality or of this descent, then it makes sense that the numbers would make it.
This is my rebuttal to that. Why are those police so heavily in that area?
See, that's when the nuances start coming out.
Because
we want to make sure nothing happens.
Why do you think something's going to happen in the black and brown areas? Something can happen in the white areas.
Yep.
Why y'all ain't all up and through there? It's because the perception of black and brown people is already negative. So, oh yeah, these are some troublemakers. We need to make sure we have at least 5 squad cars within 2 blocks. You know
what I'm saying? Super predators. Hillary said that. Hillary Clinton said that.
But even the way Donald Trump was taking up for those protesters who were protesting the shutdown of salons and stuff, because that's a public health issue. And I need a haircut. I'm going to stand on the Capitol with my gun. And he referred to them as good people. But you want to refer to not even just black folks, but anybody outraged by the unjust death of George Floyd as a thug.
I will say we are lucky to have Trump, because he does lack the composure, like that politician's poker face.
Yeah.
So he used the exact same language when he was talking about the Charlotte protests.
Oh yeah.
So he called them thugs, but it was good people on both sides. Like he called the people that didn't have a permit thugs. They were peaceful. They just didn't have a permit, and that's why they felt it was the escalation was justified. But when it was you have they were chanting Nazi talking points, and when he finally got backed into a corner, then he finally said there were good people on both sides. It's like when you finally realize you're wrong, so all of a sudden you want to say, hey, we both said some things that we didn't mean. Like, you want to spread that blame out thin once you realize you got some on you. So it's like, if we had somebody, I'm not saying Pence is that person, but if we had somebody who felt the exact same way, but was the politician Trump brags about not being, could you imagine how irritating that would be for him to say the exact same thing, and we know it, but those very same people that are hitting you up right now going, oh my God, I didn't know it was like that. Those very same people will be sitting there going, nothing wrong here.
And that's why, in some ways, we did need Trump to be a president. Because,
in a lot of ways.
We are now shown exactly what we don't need. Those people who were closeted racists finally got a little confidence boost. Well, my president said this, so they just feel more confident coming out and saying stuff, so that's okay. Go ahead, let us know who you are. And here's the thing, I have a lot more respect for overt racists.
Yeah.
Let me know where you stand up front. It's those people who use microaggressions and stuff like that, which is a lot more people than we realize. And some of that can be fixed if people are open to seeing that there's a problem with it. Because just like me being a therapist, we have to take a class in grad school that we call it, my class is called Counseling Diverse Populations. And one of the first things you have to do as a therapist or a counselor is check your own bias.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're there to help that person. That person came to you for help.
Right.
And if I had any type of prejudice against, I don't know, an Indian person. And sometimes you don't know until that person's sitting in front of you. But guess what? It's up to me to check that and be like, whoa, would I think the same way if this person were black or this person looked like me? What about their culture am I not understanding? Am I going to be able to help this person? And if I'm not, it's my duty to pass them to somebody who can help them, who doesn't have the bias. Or I can work through my own bias also on my own and come with a clean slate. But everybody needs to do that. Check your biases. Check your biases at the door. And I do it constantly.
Yeah. Like, I think that's one of those professional traits that definitely should be just general for people. Like, I remember I took a mediation class when I was like in 3rd grade, and I still use stuff I learned then, now, about, using like I statements and, just a lot of probably like 101 stuff for you, in your profession. Yeah. But when you're trying to de-escalate a situation, you learn that, telling somebody what they did as opposed to just saying how you feel, it shifts blame. Even if you're not trying to do that, that's the perceived act. Yep. And so, relating that to what you just said, about checking your bias, 2 things are going on. One, if you're able to see the person across from you as a person who has to deal with life as it came at them, and you're able to see all the labels that they have to carry from a day-to-day basis, and those labels bring with them experiences, and those experiences they create habits. And so when you're looking at a person who behaves a way you just don't understand, rather than dehumanizing them, understand that this person had to get here a way I didn't come. That's like you taking the elevator, this person taking the stairs, and then you trying to hold a conversation but getting irritated because they keep on heaving and stuff. They sweating on your couch and stuff. They got here a different way than you got here. So I'm not saying the elevator is privilege, but, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, but the other side of it is, once you're able to see the other person as a person, recognize that you are a person as well, and you too have bias. So, we always want to feel like we're the ultimate good. I don't say we always, but sometimes, I will have to get off my pedestal when I approach the comment section. Like when I make a post or when I comment on somebody else's post and I see a response, a lot of times I do have to check. I have this feeling of, all right, now let me educate these mofos. But I have to admit that I am biased towards against Trump. Yeah. Well, I'm like he hits a sore spot just because. On the one hand, yeah, he's bold enough to say it out loud. On the other hand, this is how he feels, and he's in a position where he thinks it's a good thing that he hasn't trained to wield the machine that has squashed our community in the best of hands. So, yes, like somebody checks me on Trump, I'm like, you're right, I don't really like the guy, but this is why. So if I look at him as a person, if he was black and did this, if he was black and said the very same stuff. If he was black and he mocked a disabled reporter, or he called one group of people thugs for protesting a man losing his life, but another group of people, good people, for protesting, I know people want to make it seem like it's more complex than, being able to get a shower, get a haircut. But at the end of the day, a man lost his life. And as we said, Dr. King, the end-all be-all of civil rights activists, said himself that riots and looting are a part of the process. How can you see one as good people, but the other as, just thugs is what they're inviting it on themselves?
This is the way my therapist put it to me this morning. There's ignorant people and there's stupid people. Ignorant people, they just don't know.
Once they do.
And once they do, and what they choose to do with that information, if they choose to shrug it off and pretend like it's not going on, you're stupid. Yeah. Trump is stupid. Trump is stupid because he sees it. It's not that he's not aware of what's going on. He just chooses to continue to think the way he thinks. And here's the thing: a lot of people used to praise Trump. You know, he was a idol, for a role model for successful business and stuff like that. Like, I even think about episode of Fresh Prince. There's an episode of Fresh Prince where they were given an offer for their house, and you know, it was like one of those reminiscing episodes or whatever. They think about all the good times they had in the house.
Yeah.
And then the buyer comes by the house and it's Donald Trump, and you know, Carlton was like, "It's the Donald."
I remember
you know, like, you know, whatever. And
but I thought about that. I'm like, he was the same guy then.
But we didn't know how he thought.
Because we didn't care. It didn't affect us. It was just like, oh, he's a TV personality. But a lot of the stuff that he does now, you realize it's the same thing. You know, he agrees with people who agrees with him. You know, he wants to continue this image of success, of, you know, the gold brand, things like that. But when you really get down to it, he was a con artist the whole time. And that should say a lot about putting people on pedestals. And not that, you know, check the people. I was about to say, we didn't know, but at the same time, we did know. People bring up old video clips of him saying stuff on the news that were very either misogynistic, sexist, racist. But it's like, okay, so we did know, but it, like you said, it didn't affect us at the time. He wasn't in a leadership position that affected the entire country. However, we still should have spoke up about it because he was in a powerful position that affected a lot of people's lives. Like a baby throwing a tantrum is sometimes cute, but putting them behind the wheel of an 18-wheeler, that is terrifying, downright terrifying. So a lot of the things that, you know, he's guilty of now, he was guilty of then. It's funny when I have people on my timeline who make it all political. Like, I understand it's politics, but they just take it to the party every time. Y'all, I vote Democrat, but I'm not a Democrat. I don't agree with the Democratic Party right now, because if I did, I would have. I just don't. You know, I was a Bernie guy. I would have got down with Bernie more than any other motherfuckers. I might have bleeped that out, but whatever. That's just what it is. But when I saw that people within his party endorsed Biden, like, had y'all did that same thing for Bernie, he would have got the nomination. And in situations like this, like, just imagine having the option of Bernie over Trump right now. You know, it just, I feel like a lot more people are becoming aware. We're listening. And I feel like he would have gotten that support that they feel like he wouldn't have got. But again, it goes back to that they chose Biden because they felt like he could beat Trump. But why would you not speak the truth as opposed to just trying to catch everybody's attention? It's like you got a whole bunch of filler because you know it'll attract attention. But I'm perfectly honest, we're trading one old racist white dude for another one. I mean, the races might be a little bit of a push, but I mean, let's be honest, I can't really trust no old, rich, white politician.
Yeah.
They don't know nothing about me.
And that's my thing. I feel like I can't really trust Joe Biden either, especially after his recent comment of saying you ain't black. I mean, granted, there was validity to his statement in a way, but you can't tell me.
His statement is why.
You can't tell me whether or not I'm black.
His statement is why a lot of allies have been afraid to speak up because they didn't want to overstep the way he did. Because, like you said, in a way he's right, but that is not. Not only is that not your place to speak, it's just it makes you feel gross. It's like when you about to hug your grandma and she said, "Come here." It's like, now I don't even want to engage in it right now. Like, if there was another way, trust me, we would go that way.
Yeah.
But you lucky my only options are choose you or piss off my whole family. So, how long we sitting there? hitting at 50 minutes right now. I mean, I don't mind posting this raw since we haven't done anything, and people like listening to conversations. I hope this is one of those that likes up the comments, because I heard myself go off on a few tangents. So like, again, fact check me if there were any moments where I said what I meant to say a couple times, but I also didn't finish reading the article. I intended to read through that in the course of this, but seeing as how we're almost at an hour now, I don't have time to read. And the article itself is quite long, and I imagine the dissertation is as well. So, like I said, I'm going to decide whether I just want to buy the article or rent the article to read, because you only get it for 48 hours. So either rent the article to read or just buy it and then share it online, but still to read it. But there were some things that I wanted to say that I didn't get to, but I definitely feel like my point, I feel like I've gotten off my chest what I want to get off my chest. Anything you want to do, Little Q?
Take care of yourself. This is a very emotional time. I think this is going to be a very defining time. I believe this time will be held in history books, and I hope that the full truth will be told. As angry as we are, as emotional as we are, as sad as we are, we have to take care of our emotional health. That was my focus. I also thought about going to a protest today, but I just emotionally can't handle it. We gotta take care of ourselves. We have things that need to get done. Don't be afraid to speak up, but be safe. Be real. Check yourself. Don't just check others. Check yourself.
Right.
But yeah, we gonna get through. That's all I got to say. Seek help if you need it. If you need mental health, seek a therapist. I don't have any resources to give out that, people don't have the money or something, but there's online resources, BetterHelp,
I've
things
heard
like
about
that. Check out Psychology Today. You can find psychiatrists, psychologists, therapists, marriage and family, anything in your area, and you can check, see what type of insurance they take or whatever sliding skills they offer. But yeah, just take care of yourself. Being on social media the whole time is not always great. So yeah, mostly everything I'm saying is an opinion piece. There's, if I've given any statistics or anything like that, I'm not 100% sure. Don't quote me on everything.
Like my pastor used to say, he wouldn't present a message that he didn't feel like came from the Father, but at the same time, fact check it. You got the book. You know what I'm saying? Look it up for yourself, because a lot of times that can help erase some skepticism you have in your mind. It can help clear up some things, or it can help correct something he may have gotten wrong. So, if there's something that we've gotten wrong, if there's some of our bias that, we dropped, or there's something you was like, yeah, right, it ain't like that, and you go look it up for yourself, a lot of times it can help reinforce you in those conversations where you may not have spoken up before. And I think that's really what's going to come down to, like, our allies, non-black people speaking up when this happens. But at the same time, black people not always getting offended when somebody mentions their experience. Yes, we are talking about, George Floyd right now. But if someone of a different race, draws relation to their experience, keeping an open mind can help us create an ally. And now that conversation is going into a room that we never could. So, let's not just spread COVID, let's spread some wokeness. Yeah, that works. All right, folks, stay safe, stay strong, stay tuned. This is your favorite light-skinned couple signing out.
Peace.
Deuces.